guys, here come the dollies. They got fresh sinkers, hot coffee, and the sweetest smile.
Hello,
Hi, everybody.
welcome back. Thank you so much for all the kind comments from last episode. We hope you enjoyed it. We know that it was a little bit of a niche topic last time, but I really enjoyed talking about it, and I hope you guys enjoyed listening.
I enjoyed it. I mean, for me, it was fun. For me, it was an education because
Yeah,
yes, I know old movies, but I don't know them the way you do. So for me, that was really fun. I I took notes.
good. I'm glad.
I
And
took
then I
notes.
made
I
you
did. Yes, I'm making a list now. I'm working
made
my
you a
way
whole
through a
list.
list. Yes, absolutely. A whole list. A whole list.
I know that we're really excited to talk about today's topic. This has been on our list for a little while. So
Yes.
I know that we're excited for this one for definite.
No, this one had my interest peaked from the minute I saw the trailer for the movie.
Yes.
Um, So today we're talking about Lee, the movie Lee, and the woman herself, Lee Miller. Now,
I
I didn't know much about her, to be
neither,
honest with
neither did
you.
I. I didn't
I
either.
knew her famous photo. I feel
I
like
didn't
a
I
lot
didn't
of
even know
people,
that.
I feel like it's one of those photos from the war where you either do or you don't.
Yeah. Like
And for those of you who don't know which photo we're talking about, it is the photo of Lee Miller bathing in Hitler's bathtub with a photo of Hitler next to the tub and her dirty boots on the
mhm.
floor. I think it
I
is so badass.
I had never seen the picture. I had no knowledge of it, but seeing it for the first time even before we watched the movie, I was instantly so intrigued by how she was able to get to Hitler's house.
Oh, immediate intrigue because
Yeah.
it's like as a woman, you see something like that and you're like, how did she accomplish this?
Yeah.
How did she get there?
Yeah. Which I'm also
And
really excited to talk
and
about
how can
because
I grow up and be like how can I grow up and be like that and be so cool?
yeah, how can I do that?
But I think before we get into the movie itself, we should it would be a fault on our part if we didn't talk about her and her life pre-war
Mm.
and who she was and what made her like the tough, thick-skinned woman that went on to become a war correspondent.
Yes. And I've managed to find quite a bit of information.
Because we don't get any of this in the movie. You really
No.
don't. The movie starts right on the heels of the invasion of France in 1938.
Yes.
So England's not at war yet.
Hmm.
Hitler's kind of he's making himself known. He's getting his name out there,
Yeah.
but the war isn't active yet. So the movie starts with her at that stage of her life. No pre there's no prehistory on that.
Yeah. But she led a really interesting life. She was born in Poughkeepsie, New York in
Poughkeepsie.
April. Yes. I don't know how to say it.
That's okay.
I'm just reading it as it sounds.
Poughkeepsie. It sounds different than it looks.
I will let you say that from now on.
Ah.
Um, in April 1907, her mother was of Scottish and Irish descent, and her father was of German descent. Before the war, she was a fashion model, and it was in Paris that she became a fashion and fine art photographer. So before World War II, she was a model, and she worked with Vogue from the age of 19.
Wow.
So she was always sort of in contact or working for or with Vogue. I feel like for most of both careers, most of her modeling career,
Yes.
and
Yeah,
most of obviously all of the war correspondent
I
career.
feel like in that time period, that era, her name and Vogue were almost synonymous with each other.
Yeah, they really were. She lived a really intriguing life. She moved to Paris in 1929, and she became the muse of a surrealist photographer called Man Ray. And he was the person that pioneered something called the rayograph, which was a play on his name. But in 1932, she left and returned to New York, where she established a portrait and commercial photography studio.
Interesting.
So she went from modeling, like when modeling jobs became scarce on the cusp of the war, she then turned to photography, which she found to be more steady. And obviously less of her using herself for work, if that makes sense. She's not using her body to provide work. She's going behind the camera itself.
And she says that in the beginning of the film. That's actually where the film opens up.
Yes.
Which is her taking photos of women in Paris.
Mm-hmm.
But
I love how
we'll
most of I love how most of her life is described as she got bored. Literally, most of what I found in research, a lot of sentences began with she got bored of life in XYZ, or she got bored of this, she got tired of that. And a lot of the boredom is what leads up to her becoming a war correspondent. So at the outbreak of World War II, she was living in London. She wasn't married to Roland Penrose yet, but she had met him after she had returned from Egypt.
So she had a first husband, though. Penrose is not her first husband.
Yes, she did. She married an Egyptian businessman called Aziz Eloui Bey, and she met him in New York.
Okay. Okay.
And I believe they were married up until she married Penrose because they never divorced.
It says here she got bored of life in Egypt. This is in
Yeah.
1937. She got bored. So she got bored of life in Egypt, and then she returned to Paris.
Yeah.
And
Where
I think
again,
that's when she reconnected with Man Ray.
Yep.
And then she met Roland Penrose in 37.
Yes. But again, it's she got bored.
So when we get bored, we can just jump from topic to topic. Is that?
I would love that.
I could just change everything I'm doing when I get bored.
I'm bored. I'm
bored.
I feel like her being a war correspondent was the thing she stuck with the longest, and thank goodness. Because
I think her being a war correspondent was probably, I mean, while it's probably exhausting and it taxes on you physically and mentally, and I almost feel like it rips pieces from you, I also feel like she was so good at it because she had this really fierce grit and determination that, I mean, if you were a woman during the war and you were involved in it in any capacity, you had to have that kind of fierce grit and determination to do whatever it was you were doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that it was a tiring, mostly thankless job that she did, but she did it to document war as historical evidence, is a quote from her. Her goal was to document war as historical evidence. And she wanted to provide an eyewitness account of the casualties of war.
Which we see her starting with in the film.
Yes.
Her first photos of the casualty of war are photos of the Blitz from during the Blitz.
Yep.
So in the movie, it's the Vogue office in Paris has been demolished in the Blitz.
Yes.
And that's where she starts taking pictures. She puts masks or protective glasses on some of the women standing out in the street, and she takes photos of them seeking shelter. And that's, I think, her starting point documenting the war.
I believe that is what sparked it. Just something as, I say, as small as, but it was that one event that led her to. She was even taking pictures of it before it became known as the Blitz. It didn't even have a name yet. And I'm not entirely sure if it was her that coined the name. I don't think it was, but yeah, she was taking pictures of it before it became known as the Blitz. So what did you think of the movie? I loved it.
I don't think I had a single gripe with it.
No, me
Obviously,
either.
I think my only gripe would have been I wanted more. I did.
Yes.
I think it would have been very interesting. And I know for formatting purposes and timing, you can't give everything.
Yes,
But I think I
absolutely.
would have liked maybe a drop of her pre-war correspondent life.
Yeah, me too.
But my God, I loved it. And I
It
don't
was
say that
so
about a lot of movies
interesting.
lately. Like I don't
Yeah.
find myself like falling over myself with, oh my God, I loved it so much.
Yeah.
I loved it so much that, and we watched it together, not
Yep.
together, but together, like,
Yes. We pressed play at the
we
same
pressed play at the
time.
same time. But, and I know you and I were talking as we were watching it.
Yeah.
The first text that I sent after I watched it was to my dad. And I said to him, if you don't watch this immediately, because this is right up my dad's alley. But any kind of dark, gritty war film is, him and I are kind of built the same in that sense. It's like,
Yeah.
the grittier the better, hand it over.
Yeah.
I said to him, you have to watch this immediately. It was amazing.
I feel like you and I say to each other a lot that we are spoiled by war media in terms of
Oh man, so
we,
spoiled.
we got Band of Brothers, we got The Pacific, more recently we got Masters of the Air. And I don't know,
SAS Rogue Heroes.
SAS Rogue Heroes. I don't know if we kind of feel like we've been given all of these things and a lot of movies or TV shows don't match up to that.
I'll be the first person to admit it. Yes, I
Yeah.
think anything that's anything in the Hanks Spielberg wheelhouse that maybe Dale Dye assisted on
Yeah.
as a military advisor. So even like throw Saving Private Ryan in there,
Yes.
even something like Pearl Harbor. I loved Pearl
Yes.
Harbor.
All of them are
I feel
great.
like those early days, those early day war movies spoiled us. And I will
Absolutely.
forever compare everything, I think, to Band of Brothers.
Yeah. And I
I probably shouldn't say that so loud, but I will
I
probably compare everything
I
to that for the rest of my life.
I feel like this was one of the movies that definitely matched up
Mm-hmm.
to that because it was so well made. And I feel like the characters, even though we had them for such a short time, were all really well fleshed out. I really loved Andy Samberg in this movie. I believe it was his first serious role outside of comedy, and he played it so well.
I was pleasantly surprised by
I
Andy
was
Samberg.
too. But he
So pleasantly surprised.
he also had that little spark where you know that he's still a funny little guy, but you could tell that he was taking it very seriously. Um, Kate Winslet just gets more talented and beautiful with every year. I'm sure she's immortal at this point. She doesn't age. She was great. I feel like she really encapsulated
I
Lee
think
Miller.
even down to the hair, the makeup,
Yeah.
she really did look like Lee Miller.
Yeah. I
She really
feel
did.
like even though necessarily I don't feel like she looked like a carbon copy or like exactly as Lee Miller would have looked, she got the same aura
Yes,
and she
yes,
got the same
absolutely.
sort of vibes of Lee Miller that when we looked at other photographs after watching the movie, you could see a lot of Kate in Lee.
Yeah, you
And
could
then
see
you could
why they
see,
cast Kate.
yeah. I love seeing familiar faces pop up as well. We got to see Jim Murray,
Yes.
who also played Colonel Harding in Masters of the Air. We got to see Ian Dunnett Jr., who plays Bailey in Masters of the Air.
And Harriet Leach, who
We got to
plays
see, yeah, we got to see Harriet.
Taddy Spats in
Yeah,
Masters of the Air. It was a little Masters of the Air reunion
it kind of
within Lee.
was.
I thought that they were all phenomenal.
So did I. I think again, it was one of
I mean,
those
we
things
got
where
we got Ian Dunnett Jr. very briefly,
we
Harriet Leach
did
very
very
briefly,
briefly.
but we got a little bit more of Jim Murray. I recognized his voice before I even saw him on the screen. I heard
So
him
did
speak and I said,
I.
"Oh,
There he is.
I know that voice.
I know that booming voice.
I know that cadence. I know that voice."
And then it turned, the camera turned. It's like, oh, there he is. We knew he was there
Yes.
before we even saw him, which was really nice. Again,
It's nice to see familiar faces
It really
And it's
is.
nice to see them kind of not just be, in my eyes, then they're not just like, he's not just Chick Harding anymore in my eyes, you know.
Yeah, yeah. I really liked that.
Which I think was really nice that they brought the three of them in.
Yes. And I believe it was also the same casting directors for this as it was for Masters of the Air. So
Took the words right out of my mouth. Yes.
once again, Lucy Bevan, Olivia Grant, fruit basket for you.
Oh, Lucy
Once
Bevan, I
again,
send you all of my thanks.
impeccable.
Impeccable casting, not just for the three Masters of the Air veterans that you cast, but for the entire film.
Yeah, everyone fit their role so perfectly. I love that they saw something in Andy Samberg that he could play a serious role like this, which I
I was
really
hesitant.
liked.
I'm not
Yeah,
gonna
I
sugarcoat it.
was.
When I saw the casting at first, when I saw the trailer, I said, "Oh, really?"
The
So that's
guy
an
from
that's
Brooklyn
a very
Nine-Nine.
interesting. It's a very interesting choice,
Yeah,
and it kind of made me think, "Oh God, really? Like, is it?" Like I know it's going to be a serious movie, and I know that they're gunning for it to be a serious movie, but Andy Samberg,
yeah,
oh, is this going to like taint it in some way? But not
it really
at
didn't.
all.
Really didn't.
Not at all.
I also really loved the cuts to and from, I guess, present day, which would have been the 70s. I loved her and her son having this conversation of,
I didn't realize it was her son at first.
yeah, I also thought it was just an interviewer.
I
Like,
thought it was a reporter, an
yeah,
interview, because I just didn't. It didn't. They didn't like. They didn't give it away. Like they didn't do anything to
yeah,
lead it on and give it away. And then when she says, "Yeah, I'll tell you a story about me if you tell me a story about you,"
yeah,
and I'm like, "Oh, okay." She's just, she's at this it's point in her life where she's like, "I really don't want to answer any more questions about this, but
yeah.
okay, let's play. Like, let's make it a game. Let's play a little game."
Her son didn't even know about her work during World War II until she passed away. She died in 1977
Yes.
of lung cancer.
Well, she
Um,
smoked a ton.
oh, she smoked and drank like
Just in the movie alone, you see her smoking and
just
drinking and smoking and
constantly.
drinking.
I mean, I don't blame her, all the things that
It
she
was the
saw and
times, and it was the
experienced.
times. That was the
Yeah,
sign of the times. But
yeah. But no, her son wasn't aware until after she died. He was clearing out her house and he discovered 60,000 photographs. A lot of the negatives that he found were cut up due to, I don't really think it's a spoiler because it is real life history, due to British Vogue not publishing these really harrowing pictures that Lee had taken of the concentration camp. I believe it was Dachau.
I think British Vogue dropped the ball on that at some
They
point.
really
But
did.
I feel like they really, and I can almost see it from both sides where they they lived it and they didn't
Yeah.
want to put it in the faces of the people any more than
Yeah.
they had already seen it every single day.
Yeah.
But American Vogue published them.
Yeah. And
American Vogue said, "Well, we'll do it."
there was a
Because
line.
nobody in the States was really, yes, there was Stars
Yeah.
and Stripes newspaper, there was Life magazine, but to see that, I don't
Yeah.
think anybody in the States was getting that. They weren't even showing stuff like the concentration camps. I don't think even
Mhm.
think in newsreels.
No, they weren't aware.
It was so, that scene where she gets up into the train car and stands in there with the bodies of these poor
Yeah.
souls and
Mm.
takes pictures of them because this is what's happening. And if
This is
I'm
war.
going to see it, everybody else is
Everyone.
going to see it too.
Everyone has to see it. And
Everybody has to understand what this war, and that I feel like that's the job she gave herself.
yes.
Everybody has to understand what this war is taking. It's
Yeah.
not giving a single inch. It's just taking.
And I really loved there was a line in the movie where she's being told that British Vogue won't publish her pictures, but American Vogue might. And I believe the publisher says, I'm trying my hardest. And Lee turns to her and says, you're not trying hard enough.
No.
And I feel like they even did Lee Miller a bit of a disservice by sending her out to take all these pictures and then saying, oh, these are too harrowing. These are too horrific to show people. I'm sure she felt very, well, what was the point? What do you want me to show you? Would you like me to sugarcoat it?
That also goes back to, she was employed by British Vogue. The British Army would not send her out as a war correspondent.
No, they wouldn't. She had to turn to the US Army. And even then,
the
that was
United States Army.
begrudgingly.
And they begrudgingly sent her, but
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
they begrudgingly sent her. And then she gets to that first base. She sees Jim Murray's character, Colonel Spencer.
Yes.
And one of the first things he says to her is, there's no women in the briefing room. And she says, well,
Yeah.
this is my job. Like,
Where else am I
I'm a news
supposed to
correspondent, I'm a
go?
war correspondent. This is my job. What am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
And he point blank says to her, well, now you're my problem. As if having her there was
an issue.
a burden. It was an issue. Well, now you're my problem. And I remember him delivering that, like, he delivers that line and I'm like, Jesus. She's like, what she's doing shouldn't be like, now looking at it now in 2025, it's like, but what she's doing shouldn't be a problem. It shouldn't be thought of as a problem. It's life. It's news. It's important. But back then, these guys just wanted to fight. They wanted to fight their battles, fight their wars, their missions, make it out alive on the other side and go home. And then she's just one person he has to worry about, one extra person he has to worry about protecting. Exactly. So I see it from both sides, but at the same time, watching it now, and I'm like, no, this shouldn't be a problem.
It's like, wait a minute, just let her in.
She's
not going to do anything.
She's got her toe in the door.
Yeah.
Let her open it.
Yeah.
Or like, just open it for her.
It's just her with her camera.
Cracked open, let it go all the way.
Yeah. She wasn't the only female war correspondent who covered the US Army in the European theatre. She was joined by 5 other women. Their names were Mary Welsh, Dixie Tiggy, Kathleen Harriman, Helen Kirkpatrick, and Tanya Long. And I believe one of them ended up marrying Oscar Hemingway.
Wow.
Of all people. But she wasn't the only one, which was,
but they don't even make mention of them.
They don't, not in the movie. No.
And granted, the movie is about her.
Yeah. I mean,
not even a mention that there were other women out there.
Yeah. Which means we weren't aware of the other women that were going along with Lee until we did our own research after the movie. But yeah, she was joined by 5 others. I don't believe they all went to the same place at the same time. I believe they were just scattered. In one group. Yes, they were sort of scattered and then they would meet back up.
But she traveled with Dave Sherman.
Yes.
Which was
Andy Samberg's character.
Andy Samberg's character. They were almost, I want to say, like partners in crime.
They really were.
They went in the film, they went everywhere together. And I think during the course of the war in life, like in real life, they were side by side as they corresponded as well.
Yes.
He worked for Life magazine?
He did.
Yeah, he worked for Life magazine.
And he worked there his entire career, and I believe he was one of the longest serving people on staff at Life magazine before his retirement.
Wow.
So he worked there the entire time, which is so sweet. And he was also the one that took the picture of Lee Miller in the bathtub.
Yes.
She was the one that set it up, and he was the one that clicked the button.
Yes. I do love the symbolism of that photo, because
Me too.
She's just come back from Dachau. She's up in his apartment.
Yep.
Because this is not the eagle's nest, not to be confused
No.
with Berchtesgaden.
Yeah.
This is just his apartment. And she's gone into his bathroom, turned on the tap in the tub, and stomped the dirt from Dachau of her boots all over the white bath mat.
Yep. It was also the day that Hitler committed suicide.
Was it? Yes.
It was the same day. It's the same day
Yes.
that it was the same day that either he did it or he was found deceased, but very, very symbolically, it was the day that people found out that he had died. And the same day that she got in his bathtub and she washed herself after weeks of going all around Europe in a Jeep with Dave Sherman, she also slept in Ava Braun's bed in the same apartment. So she
You're gonna
really
do it.
she really said, F you guys.
If you're gonna do it.
You're gonna do it, go big. And she really was. I mean, if anything was to describe Lee Miller, you know the saying, go big or go home.
Oh, genuinely, yes.
Just she went big. She really did. She ended up, so after the war, she didn't quit photography afterwards. She ended up becoming more interested in cooking, and she married Roland Penrose, and they had their only son, Anthony, who now owns the house, Farley Farm, and he offers tours of his mother's works. He was the one that found, obviously, all the pictures we now know of today.
He created the Lee Miller archives.
He did, yes. So I believe he owns that. Very funnily, she was investigated by MI5 in the 50s on suspicion of being a Soviet spy, which I find so funny. I don't know why, but I find that really funny. But she essentially, after World War II, after her works not being published, it said that she swapped the dark room for the kitchen. To the point where when she died, she requested that her ashes be scattered in her herb garden, which I think is really sweet.
Yeah.
It's very nice. In October of 1969, she was asked in a New York Times interview what drew her to photography initially. And she said it was a matter of going out on a damn limb and then sawing it off behind you. And I really feel like that is a perfect description of the things she went through the war. Being a war correspondent, she was told no at every turn and she still persevered. In the movie, obviously, we see that the British Army says no. We see that David Sherman gets a date to go to Europe and she doesn't. She has to stay home because she's a woman. And through all that perseverance, they still didn't give her enough credit, to the point where she ended up hiding it until her death, until her son discovered it. And the only reason we have what we have now is because her son felt it appropriate to release everything, which I think is, for us, it's very lucky. But I don't think it was a case of she wasn't proud of what she did. I think it was a case of I went through all this, I experienced all this, and I was still told no.
Not wanting to be told no again.
Yeah. So she ended up keeping it to herself. Essentially became a housewife, which I sort of feel is the complete opposite of what we experience at the start of the movie, where she's a free, fun-loving woman who buys all her groceries at a French market, and then she sat in a garden eating fruit topless with all of her equally topless friends.
Such was the times, and such was life in the late 30s in Paris.
Yeah. Which honestly, that's the dream.
We're pre-war at this point.
Pre-war.
There's the potential of a looming threat. There's no there's no worry at that point. And then all of a sudden, they're all underground.
And all of a sudden,
Everybody in France is underground.
that was so heartbreaking in the movie, especially where she is being told where her friends are being held or where they're being kept prisoner, where they have chosen to stay until Paris is once again no longer
Liberated.
yet
Yeah.
liberated. That thank you. I was about to say no longer occupied, but that would have been a long-winded way of saying that. It's haunting. There's a
Haunting
scene,
is the right word. Yeah.
yeah. There's a scene where she meets up with her friend after, is it a number of years, a number of months? And
It's right after Paris, right after France is liberated.
yeah. And
And
she's in an
her
empty
friend
house.
is sweeping the dirt off the floors of an empty apartment in a fur coat because it's all she has.
Mhm.
And she's lost everybody.
And it's a sort of I believe she says it's in case they come back. I don't want them to come back to a dirty house
There was
or an
nothing in the house
there
but
was
dirt.
nothing in the house. And Lee invites her to come with her so she can look after her, and she refuses.
No, she refuses
She
because she needs to be
refuses.
there in case somebody comes back. So you were telling me something very interesting before we started recording, but you were telling me something very interesting about how long it took this movie to be made.
Yes, it took altogether it took 8 years for the movie to be made.
8 years?
Yeah. So
Wow.
they had to stop due to COVID in 2020, obviously, for
Okay, okay.
that period of time. And funders kept pulling out. So it was like to the point where the funding for the movie was so precarious that Kate Winslet ended up paying the entire cast and crew's salaries for a couple weeks.
Wow.
And she also put herself forward as the producer of the movie. She wanted this movie made so badly that she starred in it and produced it.
She's one of those celebrities you don't really hear anything bad about
You really
ever.
don't. You really don't. And she seemed so nice and so sweet. She just seems like just a nice woman. She just
She
looks like she's
does.
the kindest lady.
She does.
And you can tell that she really put her everything into this movie. Like she absolutely encapsulated the woman she was playing.
I've seen like mixed reviews on it. Like
Yeah.
some people saying they didn't think it was gritty enough. Some people saying they didn't think she was true to who Lee Miller was. I think it was, I think she did a phenomenal job bringing Lee Miller to life on the screen.
I think so too.
I
And
really think she left it all on the floor.
I think so as well. And Kate was the only person that they had in mind to play Lee Miller.
I
The
can't picture anybody else taking that role.
neither, yeah, me either. The cinematographer, her name is Ellen Kuras, was at a bookstore in New York and she spotted a book about Lee Miller. And the first thing she thought was how much Lee Miller looked like Kate Winslet. So she bought herself a copy of this book and then she sent Kate Winslet a copy of the book
Wow.
as well, just purely because Ellen thought that Lee Miller and Kate shared some facial similarities. So years later, Winslet started developing the movie due to the book that she was sent, and then she had her friend Ellen Kuras direct it. So it all started with those two. And filming began in September of 2022, but then there was a production pause because Kate Winslet slipped. There is a scene in the movie where she is running down the street in St. Malo. This was her first day of shooting, and she slipped and she fell and had to be taken to hospital. She injured her back, but
Oh God.
she wanted to keep filming despite the back injury. She could barely walk or stand up, but she she really wanted to carry on, and that just shows you how much she loved doing this and how much she was so into it, which is why I don't understand the reviews of how she did not encapsulate Lee Miller, because I feel like that is such a Lee Miller thing to do, is like, she's hurt herself, get up and carry on. I have a job to do.
Exactly.
But yeah, Kate Winslet was the one that got most of the stars and the cast and crew. It was going to reunite Winslet and Jude Law, but he dropped out. Wouldn't that have been nice?
I think that would have been delightful.
They would
Knowing both of our penchants for watching The Holiday,
I would have
I think
loved
that would have
that.
been delightful. Jude Law was on the docket to play
He was going to
David
play.
Sherman.
No, he was going
Or
to play Penrose.
oh wow. I remember
So
we're watching it and I texted you and I said, that's one of the Skarsgårds. Which one is it?
which one is it? And I had
There's
to
so
list.
many. I felt so bad at the moment. I was like, there's so many Skarsgård brothers.
No, but there really
Who
is.
is he?
I said
Which one is it?
He's not Pennywise.
He's not Penny.
He's not Floki from Vikings, and he's not the dad from Mamma Mia. It's the other one. It's like,
Just
which
process
Jonas
of
brother is it?
elimination. Whichever one is
Yeah.
left is the one.
It's
and
that one.
Alexander. It was
But yes.
Alexander Skarsgård. I think he did a wonderful job as Penrose.
I think he really did too. And
I think he fit the bill very nicely.
Yeah.
Seeing him as Penrose and knowing that Jude Law possibly would have been Penrose,
I know.
now I'm not. Now I'm like,
See,
maybe not.
Now
Jude Law.
I'm kind of glad that they didn't choose Jude Law in the end, because that would have meant they would have gone, Kate Winslet and Jude Law would have gone from playing siblings in The Holiday to now playing
yes.
a married couple who you see
Yeah.
doing couple activities in the movie. So that wouldn't have been, that would have been a bit odd. But I think we just love Jude Law.
I think we would have been very excited to see him.
But as I was saying, Winslet was the one who got most of the cast together. Kate Winslet wrote to Marion Cotillard for her to play Lee Miller's friend Solange, and Winslet and Marion had worked together in 2011. Very appropriately for, topics you and I discuss on this pod, obviously very women-centered stories. Kate Winslet was patronized by male executives when trying to get funding for the film.
I'm not surprised at all.
Me either. It's a woman trying to make it.
I hate to paint Hollywood with that brush, but I'm not surprised.
She's a woman trying to make a movie about a woman. She's quoted in an interview as saying, "The men who think you want and need their help are unbelievably outraging. I even had a director say to me, 'Listen, you do my film and I'll get your,' in quotes, 'little Lee project funded.'" And obviously Kate Winslet was outraged. She would say little because it's such a big project for such a big woman.
Oh, you took the words out of my mouth. She was a tremendous woman.
She really was. And again,
with a tremendous story. And I think that all the kudos to Kate Winslet for pushing to get it told
for years and years.
That it took so long, and obviously took so long in part to, production shutdowns and COVID, and then there was the strike. It was almost like one thing after another. But that almost is, no, it's not almost. It is. It's adding insult to injury at that point. It really
is. It truly
there are
is.
things that stopped it that were out of people's control, 100%. But that.
There were potential male investors saying things like, "Tell me, well, why am I supposed to like this woman?" You're not supposed to. You're not
supposed to like her. As a woman, you're supposed to love her. You want to, you look up to people like that. But men at the time, they didn't like her.
No.
David Sherman, I think, was the only one. And Penrose. Potentially the only ones during the war. And even Penrose, there's a scene where she says, "He keeps telling me to come home."
Yeah.
To give this up and come home to England.
Yeah. Because he misses me.
Because he misses me. And that scene where David Sherman surprises her at the hotel in Paris with Penrose. And he says to her, "Come home with me. You can, it's safe at home, right? It's safe at home. Come home with me." And she comes downstairs with all her bags. And Davy thinks that she's telling him, I'm going back to England. And she says, Roland wanted me to go home,
But I'm not going to.
but we're not going. So let's go. The Jeep is outside.
Oh,
And
yes, I loved
Andy
it.
Samberg's character, Davy, just looks at her and goes, that's not the way I thought this conversation was going to go.
Yeah, and you can even see it in his eyes. That
His whole face,
yeah.
just the flicker of, oh, that this is what we're doing. We're still going. Okay, we're going.
It's like, great. I'm glad that, and I don't know why he expected her to make any other decision.
No,
I knew that she would never, she wasn't the type of woman that would
give up
bow
the
down
fight.
to a man to give up the fight. Yeah.
She tries to disguise herself as a man to get into the briefing tent.
And she's caught immediately.
And she's caught. She's
Again,
caught by Jim Murray.
just the toe in the door and they're still not letting her in.
She's got her hair tucked underneath the hat. She's got the hat pulled all the way down. She's taken off anything that could resemble that she's a woman.
Yeah.
And she's in the tent in her fatigues, and he's still, now you're my problem. I feel like I could sit and talk about this movie probably for another hour. It was,
Oh, me too.
It was that good.
There was so much to go over and to digest, and
there was so much. Like, so here's an invitation to any of our listeners. If you want to talk about it, send us a message.
Yeah, we would love to hear
Send us a
everyone
message.
else's reviews and opinions on
We
it.
would love to know what you guys thought of it. Those of you who watched it.
We loved it.
I feel like she's such a compelling woman. She really was a force to be reckoned with, especially for the times. Especially for the times.
Absolutely.
So this is an open invitation to any of our listeners, to any of our Instagram followers who want to talk about the movie, who have opinions, who have suggestions, or just something to say about Lee Miller. Shoot us a message.
Yeah, we'd love to talk about it.
We love to talk to our followers regardless. So
yes.
The inboxes are open. And at the same time, if you're not following the Lee Miller archives on Instagram, we highly recommend it.
Oh,
there
yes.
are photos of her, photos that she's taken, very interesting facts, photos that you would not expect to see that her son has so graciously shared.
Yes.
With the world, that we think that everybody should be seeing them.
Oh, absolutely. And
we'll be continuously sharing some of our favorites to our story and to our socials as time goes on.
Yes.
With that, we're going to say goodbye for now.
Yes, thank you again for listening.
And thank you for supporting us. Thank you for being so kind and so gracious.
Always.
We know that we're newbies on the podcast block, and we're not experts. We're enthusiasts. But
we're trying our best. That's what matters.
We're trying our best, and we hope that enthusiasm is shared. And stay tuned for our next episode, because we're going to just keep going with the women and World War II movies, and we'll be back in 2 weeks with the 6888.
Yes, perfect.
And I'm very excited to discuss that one as well.
Oh, me too. We'll be diving into the film as well as the documentary. So we hope that you guys come hang out with us for that as well. Thank you, guys.
Until then, we'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.